Imagine waking up in a dark, terrifying world, convinced you've committed a crime so heinous that even your own mind turns against you. You see shadowy enemies, hear whispers of police closing in. You're fighting to survive, but every step feels like you're sinking deeper into madness. What if I told you all of it isn't real? That this nightmare is a hallucination, born from guilt you don't truly deserve? In this story, you'll discover how fear and shame can distort your reality, and how one man's fight to escape his mind reveals a shocking truth about forgiveness and self-acceptance. And just when you think you've uncovered everything, there's a twist that will change everything you thought you knew about this haunting world. If you're curious about how a man's own mind became his worst enemy and what it takes to break free, you're in the right place. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from, and smash that like button if you believe healing is possible, even in the darkest of places. This story is about to begin, and you won't want to miss a second. The rain was pouring hard. Thunder cracked loudly in the sky. I woke up in a dark room. Glass was all around me. It shined and sparkled on the floor. Some pieces were big, others tiny. The wind made the glass rattle and shake. I felt scared right away. My head hurt. My clothes were torn and dirty. I didn't know how I got here or what was happening. I sat up slowly. My eyes tried to see through the darkness. Shadows moved in the corner. I heard strange noises, creaking, scratching, and whispering. I felt a rush of panic. My heart beat fast. I wanted to run, but I didn't know where to go. I stood up carefully. My legs shook. I looked around for a way out. Suddenly, I heard a loud crash. I spun around. I saw a big window shattered. Glass was falling from above. I froze. I thought, someone is here. Something is wrong. My mind was full of fears. I whispered to myself, what's happening? Why am I here? Who's out there? My voice sounded small and shaky. The storm outside made everything seem worse. I tried to remember. I couldn't. I only knew I was scared. I felt lost and confused. The outside storm raged on. Inside me, a storm was also brewing. Fear, confusion, and worry. I took a step forward. My shoes crunched on broken glass. I looked around again. The room was empty now, but I felt eyes watching me. I didn't see anyone, but I felt sure someone was there. Suddenly, I heard a whisper. It was soft but clear. Run, hide, they're coming. I looked everywhere, trying to find where the voice came from. I was sure I was not alone. My mind raced. I thought maybe I was in danger. Maybe I had done something wrong. But I couldn't remember. I just knew I had to escape. I had to find safety. I moved toward a door. My hand trembled as I reached for the handle. I pushed it open slowly. The darkness stretched out before me. I took a deep breath and stepped into the unknown. All around me, the storm roared. Lightning flashed outside. The room was cold and silent now, but I felt a terrible presence. I wanted to believe it was just my fear, but deep down, I wondered if something worse was waiting. That was how my nightmare started. The night of chaos. Glass and shadow. The storm outside and the storm inside my mind. And I had no idea yet that this dark world wasn't real. It was a place inside my head, a place made of my fears and guilt. But I didn't know that then. All I knew was I had to keep moving. I had to find the truth, or maybe just find a way out of this terrible night. I step forward slowly. My legs feel weak, and my mind is full of fear. The room from last night is gone. Instead, I am standing in a dark place. It is quiet now, but I can still hear the storm outside. I see broken glass around me. It shines like tiny knives on the floor. My heart beats fast. I remember the noises, the chaos. I remember feeling scared. I look around. There is no door, no window, just shadows and darkness. I feel lost. I do not know where I am. Suddenly, I hear a faint whisper. It sounds like a voice, soft and far away. I freeze and listen. The whisper says, run, hide. I jump. I look around. I see nothing but darkness. I start to move slowly. Every step makes the glass crunch under my feet. I feel cold and sticky. I am scared, but I keep going. I want to find out what is happening. As I walk, I see shadows moving. They flicker in the dark. They seem to be alive. I stop and stare. The shadows begin to form shapes. I see dark figures, standing very still. I feel my body shake. "Who are you?" I whisper. But the shadows just stay silent. They look like people, but I cannot see their faces. They seem to watch me. I hear whispering again. This time it feels closer. The voices tell me, "You are guilty. You did something wrong." My stomach twists. I want to run away, but I do not know where to go. Suddenly, the shadows move. They start to chase me. I can feel their presence behind me, silent but threatening. I run faster. My legs feel heavy, like I am swimming through water. I see a faint light ahead. I run toward it, hoping it will save me. The light gets brighter. I reach a small clearing, but in the light, I see more shadows. They are darker now. They seem to grow bigger. I want to scream, but my voice is stuck in my throat. Then I hear a loud bang. It is like thunder. I jump and cover my face. When I open my eyes, the shadows are gone. The light remains, soft and gentle now. I stop running. I breathe hard. I feel tired and confused. I look at the place around me. It looks like a forest. Tall trees stretch up to the sky. Their branches are thick and dark. The forest feels strange. It is quiet, except for the rustling leaves. I step inside slowly. The ground is soft with moss. I hear insects buzzing and crawling. Some insects crawl on me. I shiver. I want to get away from these creepy bugs. I hide behind a big tree. I hug myself. I feel small and helpless. I think about what I saw, the shadows, the whispers. I wonder if they are real or just in my mind. I remember last night's storm. It was so wild. Lightning lit up the sky. The glass shattered everywhere. It was chaos. Now, the forest is quiet, but feels just as scary. I look into a small pool of water near the tree. The water is still and dark. I bend down and look into it. My face appears, but it looks strange. My reflection is broken and blurry. My eyes look tired and sad. I try to see myself clearly, but the water shows strange shapes, twisted images of my face, shadows, and dark clouds. It feels like the water is trying to tell me something. I stare at it, confused. "Who am I?" I ask softly. No answer, just the ripples in the water. I feel a voice inside me. It is my own voice, but it sounds harsh. It says, "You are guilty. You did something wrong." I shake my head. I do not believe it. I did not do anything bad. But why do I feel so terrible? The forest grows darker. I hear insects crawling and tiny animals moving in the bushes. The feeling of being watched comes back. I want to hide, but I do not know where. Then I hear the voice again, inside my mind. It whispers, "You are a murderer. You deserve to run forever." I feel like crying, but I hold back. I want to stand tall and face my fears. I look around. The trees seem to close in on me. We realize this forest is not just outside. It is inside my mind. It is my fear, my guilt, my confusion all mixed together. I take a deep breath. I try to calm my racing heart. I tell myself, this is not real. These shadows are just in my mind. I want to believe it. I want to find the truth. Suddenly, I see a small stream. The water flows gently, and I kneel down. I look again into the water. This time, I notice something different. The distorted images start to fade. The water shows my face clearly. My eyes look tired but calm. I realize I have been believing lies. My mind has created these scary stories. There was no killer, no crime. It was all part of my fear and guilt. I stand up slowly. I feel a strange sadness, but also a tiny hope. Maybe I can find peace if I accept that I am not guilty. Maybe I can stop running from myself. As I walk away from the water, I look up. The sky begins to change. The clouds part, and soft light comes in. The storm has passed. The forest starts to look less dark. I know I still have a long way to go, but I understand one thing now. The biggest fight is inside my own mind. If I can find the truth there, I can begin to heal. I take one last look at the forest and the water. I feel a small spark inside me. It is hope. A hope that someday I will be free from the fear and guilt that have haunted me. And with that thought, I start to walk toward the light. Step by step, I move forward. I do not know what is ahead, but I know now that I am not alone. My mind is my biggest challenge, but I am beginning to see that I can face it. The darkness is slowly lifting. Dawn is coming, and I am still here, trying to find my way. I woke up in a strange place. It was dark and cold. A loud storm was outside. I could hear the wind howling. Pieces of glass were all around me. Some broke and shined in the dark. I felt scared. My heart was pounding fast. I looked around. The room was full of broken glass. I saw shadows moving in the corners. I heard faint whispers. I couldn't tell if they were real or just in my mind. My head hurt. My hands trembled. I wanted to get out. I got up slowly. Every step made the glass crunch under my feet. I looked for a way out, but everything looked the same, dark and messy. I felt trapped. Suddenly, I saw something move, a dark shape. It was faint, but there. I froze. My brain told me it was an intruder, someone who was here to hurt me. I felt a rush of fear. I whispered, "Who's there?" No answer. Just the sound of rain and wind. My mind played tricks. Shadows stretched and shrank. I thought I saw eyes watching me in the dark. Then I heard a noise behind me, a soft footstep. I turned quickly. My heart jumped. I swung my arms. I shouted, "Go away!" I didn't know if I was fighting a real person or a figment of my fear. My mind made me believe I was in danger. I ran through the room. I felt like I was being chased. I saw more shadows darting past. My legs moved faster than I wanted. I wanted to escape. I thought I had to run to stay alive. Outside the room, I found a door. I pushed it open. Cold air hit me. I stepped outside into the night. The storm still raged. Lightning flashed. I saw trees swaying in the wind. Everything looked wild and dangerous. I ran into the dark forest. Tall trees blocked the sky. Their branches looked like arms reaching out. I felt small and lost. The ground was uneven. Roots and bushes pulled at my shoes. I was afraid I would fall. In the forest, I heard insects buzzing. They seemed loud and annoying. Vivid shadows moved between the trees. I saw bugs crawling on the ground. Some looked big and strange. I tried to stay quiet. I didn't want the bugs to find me. I kept running deeper into the woods. I felt a strange sensation, like I was being hunted, but I knew I was only in my mind. Still, my fears felt real. I hid behind a big tree. I pressed my back to the trunk and closed my eyes. "Why am I here?" I whispered to myself. "What is real? Is anything real?" I felt tears in my eyes. I thought about everything I had seen and heard. Was it all true? Or just my mind playing tricks again? Suddenly, I remembered something. I remembered the police coming. I remembered fighting them. But it didn't make sense now. I was alone here. There was no one else, just the woods and my fears. I took a deep breath. I told myself, "It's okay. I am safe now. This is only in my head." I looked into the water of a small pond nearby. The water was cloudy and dark. I leaned over and looked into it. My face looked back at me, but it was strange. My reflection was not clear. It was twisted. I saw shadows around my eyes. My face looked tired and scared. I felt sad. I wanted to wash away my guilt, but the water only made me more confused. I stared at my face. I asked, "Is this real, or am I just seeing things?" The water showed me my fears. I realized that what I saw was only in my mind, not real. Suddenly, I heard a voice inside my head. It was harsh and loud. It said, "You are a murderer. You will never be free." I shook my head. I didn't want to believe it. But the voice kept yelling. I slapped my hands over my ears. I shouted, "Stop! It's not true!" I tried to remember. Did I do something wrong, or was this just my guilt talking? I looked at the water again. I saw my face and my fears. I understood that I was hurting myself with these thoughts. My mind was making me see things that were not real. I was fighting my own feelings. I took a deep breath. I told myself, I am not a murderer. I made a mistake in my mind, but I am not guilty. The voice inside was loud, but I kept talking to myself. I said, I want to be free. I want to find peace. The storm was still loud. Lightning flashed across the sky. I felt tired and sad, but I also felt a small spark of hope. Maybe I could stop fighting myself. Maybe I could start to see the truth. Slowly, I stood up. I looked around the dark forest. I realized I was lost, but I was also beginning to understand. The scary things inside my head were not real. I had to face my fears and let them go. I moved forward carefully. I knew I couldn't stay here forever. I had to find a way out of this nightmare, inside my mind and in the world. As I walked, I thought about the truth. Maybe tomorrow, when the storm ended, I would see things clearly. Maybe I would find a way to stop hurting myself. Maybe I could forgive myself and start healing. For now, I kept going, step by step, into the dark, into the unknown. I was tired, but I was alive. And I hoped that soon the darkness would fade and I would see the light. I woke up in a place that felt strange. It was dark, and I could hear the wind outside. The rain was pounding on the roof. Suddenly, I heard a loud crash. Glass broke somewhere nearby. I looked around and saw sharp shards on the floor. Pieces of broken window or mirror glittered in the dark. My heart was beating fast. I felt scared. I didn't know where I was. All I knew was that I had to move, to find safety. I took a deep breath. I told myself to stay calm, but my mind was racing. I kept hearing noises, creaks, whispers, and the wind howling. I thought, is someone there? Are they trying to hurt me? I tiptoed forward, trying not to make a sound. Suddenly, I saw a shadow. It was dark and moved quickly. I froze, my stomach clenched. I thought, is this the intruder? Am I in danger? My mind played tricks on me. The shadow was just a shape, but I felt it was alive. I felt the fear grow stronger inside me. I wanted to run, but I didn't know where to go. Then I heard a whisper. It was soft but clear. It said, "Run, hide, they're coming for you." I looked around, trying to find where the voice was coming from. Was it real? Was someone really there? Or was it only my mind? I decided to leave the room. I moved quietly, step by step. As I walked, I felt like the walls were closing in. Shadows stretched around me. I felt like I was trapped inside a dark, endless maze. I reached a door. I pushed it open slowly. Outside, the storm raged harder. Lightning flashed in the sky. The wind tore at the trees. I saw dark shapes in the distance. I thought they were police or intruders. They looked like figures chasing me. I ran into the woods. The trees seemed to reach for me. Their branches looked like claws. I kept moving, trying to find a place to hide. Every sound made me jump. Tiny insects buzzed in my ears. I felt tiny bugs crawling on my skin. I shivered and brushed them away. In the forest, I hid behind a big tree. I tried to be as still as possible. I looked around, but everything felt strange. The shadows looked like enemies. The noises sounded like footsteps coming closer. My mind was full of fear. I thought, they're coming. I will be caught. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. I was scared, yes, but I also felt tired. My body was shaking. I was exhausted from running and hiding. I remembered something I saw earlier, a small river or a pond. I decided to go there. Maybe I could find peace or see my reflection. I moved slowly toward the water. The storm made the water ripple and splash. When I looked into it, I saw a distorted face. My face looked strange, like I was looking at a different person. The water showed my fears. It made me see things that weren't really there. I tried to wash away my fears with my hands, but the water only reflected my worries back at me. I felt even more lost. The water was like a mirror of my mind, confusing and full of illusions. Suddenly, I heard a loud voice inside my head. It was harsh and cold. It said, "You are a murderer. You deserve to be punished." The voice made me feel shame. I wanted to run away from it, but it stayed in my mind. I clenched my fists. I shouted, "No, I didn't do anything wrong." But the voice kept telling me I was guilty. It made me feel terrible, like I had done something bad that I couldn't undo. My thoughts spun around fast. I felt like I was losing control. I wanted to fight back. I wanted to tell myself the truth. But the fear was so strong. Then a strange thing happened. I saw flashes of the real truth. I remembered that there was no intruder, no police, no crime. All the horror was inside my mind. It was only my fear making me see things that weren't real. Slowly, I began to understand. The dark shadows, the voices, the fears, they weren't real. They were memories and worries my mind had made up. I took a deep breath. I looked at the water again. This time, I saw my real face, not the scary images. I saw a tired, scared man, me. But I also saw something new. I saw that I could choose to stop fighting myself. I felt a small hope grow inside me. Maybe I didn't have to stay trapped in my fears forever. Maybe I could find peace if I faced the truth. As I stood there, the storm outside started to calm. The rain slowed down. The wind became softer. The sky started to clear a little. I felt the first light of dawn inside me. It was a sign that a new day was beginning. I looked around the forest. It was still dark, but I knew that I was starting to see it differently. It was no longer just a prison. It was a place to learn about myself. I realized that the worst part was not outside forces. It was my own mind, telling me stories that weren't true. I had been running from my fears, but now I saw that I didn't have to run anymore. I took one last deep breath. I decided to keep going, slowly and carefully. I knew I had a long way to go, but now I felt stronger. I knew that I could face whatever came next because I was beginning to understand myself. The storm had passed, and I was still here. That was enough for now. I was not perfect, and I still had fears, but I wasn't alone anymore. I was learning to see the truth inside me, and maybe, just maybe, I could find peace one day. I woke up slowly. The storm outside was still loud. Wind howled, and rain pounded against the windows. Inside, I felt cold and dirty. My clothes were torn, and I was covered in mud and blood. I looked around. Everything was dark. I could hear glass breaking somewhere in the distance. I remembered what had happened before. The nightmare was not over, but I had to keep going. I stood up carefully. My head hurt. My legs trembled. I looked at the broken glass on the floor. It sparkled like tiny knives. I remembered the noises I heard last night. The shouts, the footsteps, the pounding. I thought I was running from danger. I thought I had hurt someone. But deep inside, I wasn't sure anymore. I took a step forward. My heart pounded fast. I felt scared, but I also wanted to understand. I had to find out if what I remembered was real or just my mind playing tricks. Suddenly, I saw shadows move in the dark. Shadows that looked like people. They flickered and danced just out of sight. I froze. My eyes searched the room. I heard whispers, soft and strange. I thought someone was watching me. I wanted to run, but my legs felt heavy. "Who's there?" I asked, my voice shaking. But only silence answered. Then the shadows disappeared. I took a deep breath. I knew these shadows were not real. They were only in my mind, part of my fears. I moved slowly toward the door. As I opened it, I saw the hallway outside. It was long and empty. I felt like I was trapped in a maze with no way out. I kept walking, trying to stay calm. Outside, the storm was still raging. Lightning lit up the sky. I saw trees swaying wildly. The wind made them creak and groan. I felt tiny insects crawling on my skin, their legs tickling and making me shiver. I wanted to hide, but I knew I had to keep moving. I stepped into the forest. The trees were tall and thick. Their branches looked like arms reaching out to catch me. I felt lost. Every shadow looked like a monster. Every sound made me jump. In the dark, I heard the sound of insects. They buzzed and chirped. Sometimes I thought I saw eyes peeking at me from the bushes. My mind made me afraid. I felt like I was being chased by everyone, by everything. I wanted to run away, but I didn't know where to go. I found a small place behind a big tree. I sat down and tried to catch my breath. My hands were trembling. I looked at the water nearby. It was a river, dark and still. I got up and went to the water's edge. I looked into the water and saw my face. But it was strange. My reflection was not clear. Sometimes it looked angry, other times sad. I saw my eyes, tired and scared. I tried to wash away my fears by splashing water on my face. But it only made me more confused. I stared at the water. I wondered, was I guilty? Did I do something wrong? Or was this all just inside my head? Then I heard a voice. It was harsh and cold. "You are a murderer," it said. I froze. The voice was inside my mind, but it felt real. It blamed me. It told me I was bad and that I deserved to be punished. Tears filled my eyes. I felt ashamed. I wanted to hide, to run, to forget. But I knew I couldn't run from my thoughts. I sat quietly by the water. I listened to the insects and the wind. I closed my eyes and tried to breathe slowly. I remembered what I had learned. Most of what I saw and heard was not real. It was my mind playing tricks on me. I was not a murderer. I was just a man lost in his fears. Suddenly, I felt a little stronger. My breathing slowed down. I realized that the shadows and the voices were only inside me. They were not real enemies. They were feelings of guilt and fear. I had to face them, not run from them. I looked again into the water. I saw my reflection. I looked at myself carefully. I said softly, "I am not a murderer. I am just a man who is scared. I need to be brave." The water was still. The storm was still loud outside. But inside, I started to feel a tiny spark of hope. Maybe I could find my way out of this nightmare. Maybe I could learn that my fears are only in my mind. I stood up slowly. I felt tired, but a little more sure. I knew I had a long way to go, but I also knew I was starting to understand. The shadows and the voices were not real. They were only inside me, and I could face them. As I looked at the dark sky and the wild trees, I promised myself I would keep moving. I would keep trying to find the truth. I would learn to be brave, even when fear was all around. And maybe, just maybe, I could wake up from this nightmare someday. I wake up slowly. The dark room feels quiet now. The storm outside has stopped. I hear rain tap against the window. I try to sit up, but my body is sore and tired. My head feels heavy. I look around. The glass shards from the storm are still on the floor, sharp and dangerous. But it's quiet here. Quiet like after a big storm. I take a deep breath. I feel a little calmer. I remember the chaos, the shouting, the running, the shadows. It all seems so real. But now, I wonder if it was just my mind playing tricks on me. I sit by the window and look outside. The sky is turning lighter. The sun is about to rise. I think about what I've been through. I was so sure I was guilty. I thought I did something terrible. But now, I'm not so sure. My mind feels strange. It's like a fog has lifted a little. I see the room clearly now. The shadows don't seem so big. The fear is still there, but it's less strong. I remember the water I saw before, the reflection in the river, the lake. I think about how water shows us who we really are. Sometimes it's clear, and sometimes it's dark and twisted. I get up slowly. I walk to the small mirror hanging on the wall. I look at my face. My face looks tired. My eyes are red from crying. I ask myself, was it really me? Did I really do those things? I want to believe I'm innocent, but part of me still feels guilty. Then I hear a soft voice inside my head. It's my inner voice. It says, "You are not a murderer. You didn't do anything wrong. The fears are just in your mind. I pause. I listen carefully. The voice sounds gentle now, almost kind. It's helping me see that I've been afraid of shadows and noises that aren't real. The voice is telling me, you are safe now. You don't have to run or hide. The danger is gone. I start to understand. The terrible things I saw and felt, they were not real. They were just my mind trying to punish me. I did not really kill anyone. I was only lost inside my own fears. I walk outside. The fresh air feels good. I see the trees, the grass, the sky turning pink. The world is waking up. I realize I've been fighting myself all along. My guilt, my fears, these were inside my head. I sit down on a rock and look at the water nearby. The water is quiet and clear now. I stare at my reflection. I see my face. I see the tired, sad face. But I also see something else. I see a little bit of hope. I whisper to myself, it wasn't real. I am not guilty. I am alive. The water shows me my face. It's not perfect. It's hurt, but it's strong too. I feel a small spark of courage inside my chest. Maybe I can start again. Maybe I can heal. I know the storm inside me is quieting down. The hallucinations and fears are fading. I am beginning to see that my mind isn't my enemy. It's just tired and confused. It needs time to rest and heal. As the sun rises higher, I stand up slowly. I take a deep breath and feel the new day. I am tired, yes, but I am also free. Free from the false fears inside my mind. I walk forward, into the light. I don't know what will happen next, but I do know one thing. I am no longer chased by shadows. The nightmare is over. And maybe, just maybe, I can find my way back to the truth. Today is a new start. I will try to believe in myself. I will try to forgive myself. Because I learned that sometimes the worst punishment comes from inside, and I don't have to let it control me anymore. The world is waiting. The night is gone. I am ready to walk into the new day. I woke up outside. The sky was just starting to turn light. The storm had passed, but I still felt tired and weak. My body was sore. Dirt and leaves covered me. I looked around. The forest was quiet now. No more loud thunder or falling glass. I took a deep breath. The air was cold and wet. I slowly sat up and tried to think. I remembered the night, the chaos, the shouts, the glass shattering. I remembered running. I thought I had hurt someone. I thought I had done something terrible. But now everything felt strange. Something inside me was different. It was like a fog had cleared from my mind. I looked at the sun coming over the trees. Light made everything look calmer. I felt a tiny spark of hope. Maybe I was safe now. Maybe I could stop running. As I tried to stand, I felt a strange feeling. My head was full of voices. Not real voices, but inside my mind. They whispered and whispered. Sometimes they sounded harsh, like judgment, and sometimes gentle, like a friend trying to help. One voice was very loud. It said, "You are a murderer. You are guilty." It was the voice of my guilt. It made me feel ashamed and small. I clenched my fists, feeling the old fear come back. But then I heard a softer voice inside. It said, "No, you are not guilty. It was all in your mind." That voice was gentle, like a calm friend. It told me I was innocent. I didn't hurt anyone. Nothing was real, only my fears. I looked at the water nearby. It was a small lake, quiet and still. I went to the edge and looked into the water. At first I saw my face, but it was distorted. My reflection looked strange, like it was made of shadows. The water showed my fears, my worries. I tried to wash away those feelings with my hands, but it didn't help. I kept looking. Slowly, I saw my real face. Not the scary face from my nightmares. Just me. No monster. No police. No dead person. Just my face, tired but true. My mind was heavy with the thought. Was it real, or was it all in my head? I knew deep inside I didn't do the things I feared. The hallucinations, those scary visions, were not real. They were just my thoughts playing tricks on me. I remembered the dark forest from before. It was full of shadows and sounds, but now I saw it differently. The trees didn't chase me anymore. They were part of my mind, not enemies. I could see the beauty in the quiet woods. They were a place to think, not a trap. I took a deep breath. I felt a little stronger. I knew I had to face the truth. I was not a criminal. I was just a man lost in a storm of my own thoughts. Inside, I heard my inner voice again. This time it was calm. It said, "You are not guilty. You're safe now. You can heal." I nodded. I knew I had been hurting myself with fear and guilt. But now I wanted to stop. It was hard to believe I was free from the nightmare. I still felt tired, but a small hope grew inside me. Maybe, just maybe, I could begin to forget the darkness. Maybe I could find peace. As the sun rose higher, I decided to move forward. Step by step, I would leave behind the storm inside my mind. I would face the new day with honesty. I was not a criminal. I was someone trying to find his way back. I turned away from the water and started to walk. The forest was quiet now, waiting for me to go through it again. But this time, I saw it differently. It was not a prison. It was a part of me to understand, to learn from. I knew I still had questions, but I also knew the truth. The terrible things I feared were only in my mind. I was not who I thought I was. I was more. I was alive, and I was learning to be free. The first light of dawn warmed my face. The storm was gone, and so was the nightmare. I was tired, but I was awake. I was ready to face whatever came next, because I knew now I was not guilty. It was all just a terrible illusion. And I was starting to believe in myself again. I woke up outside. The sun was rising, and I felt a cool breeze on my face. My body was tired and sore. I was dirty and cold, but I was alive. For a moment, I just looked at the sky and tried to breathe. It felt strange to be here after everything I went through. I stood up slowly and looked around. The forest stretched out in every direction. The trees looked calmer now. No shadows chased me, and no whispering voices filled my ears. I took a deep breath and tried to believe I was safe. Maybe I had finally escaped the nightmare inside my mind. I remembered what I had learned. The dark thoughts, the scary illusions, they weren't real. It was my mind that made them happen. I didn't really hurt anyone. No police were after me. It was just my fears playing tricks on me. I wanted to believe that more than anything. I looked down at my hands. They were muddy and trembling a little. I felt tired, but I also felt a small spark of hope. Maybe I could start to feel better. Maybe I could stop running from my fears and face what was true. Suddenly, a soft sound broke the silence. It was the gentle splashing of water nearby. I turned and saw a small lake not far from where I stood. The water looked calm, like a mirror. I felt curious. Maybe I could find some answers there. I walked to the water's edge. I knelt down and looked at my reflection. For a moment, I just stared. My face was dirty and my eyes looked tired, but I saw something else too, something I hadn't seen before. The face looking back at me was not a murderer. It was just a man who had been lost in his own mind. That's when I realized something important. All my fears, all the voices that accused me, they weren't real. They were just inside my head. I reached out and touched the water gently. It was cool and clear. I wanted to wash away the bad thoughts, but I knew I couldn't do that with water alone. Still, looking into the water helped me see the truth. I was not guilty. I was just a man who had been caught in a terrible storm in his mind. I stayed by the lake for a while, thinking. I remembered the moment I started to understand. I saw how my mind had made all those monsters and police appear. It had turned my fear into a nightmare. But now, I could see the illusions for what they really were. I felt a little stronger. I knew I had to keep going. I had to keep believing that I could be okay, even if my mind still whispered doubts. I looked around the forest again. It was quiet now, peaceful, almost welcoming. I took a deep breath and stood up. I felt the weight of everything I had been through, but I also felt something new, hope. I knew I wasn't completely healed yet. There would still be hard days, but today I had a small victory. I started walking slowly through the trees. Every step felt like a tiny step toward peace. I told myself, I am not guilty. I am just a man who needs to find his way out of the storm. I knew that the real battle was inside me, and I was beginning to see that I could win. As I moved forward, I looked back at the lake one last time. The water reflected the bright sky above. I smiled a little. Maybe, just maybe, I was beginning to find the truth and a way to heal. And so, I kept walking into the forest, ready to face whatever comes next, with a little more hope in my heart. The nightmare was not over, but I was beginning to see the light. The storm inside me was starting to pass. I knew I would be okay if I kept believing in the truth. I woke up slowly. The storm outside had stopped. The rain no longer pounded on the roof. The wind had quieted. I looked around and saw I was outside now. The forest was quiet and still. My body was sore, and my clothes were muddy and torn. I felt tired, but also a little relieved. I took a deep breath and tried to believe I was safe. For a moment, I just sat there. I looked at the trees around me. They were tall and thick. The leaves moved slightly in the gentle breeze. Everything looked calmer than before, but I still felt nervous. My mind remembered all the fear and chaos. I wondered if it was over, or if the night would bring more nightmares. I stood up slowly. My legs felt weak. I looked at the ground, and I saw a small pond nearby. The water was still and clear. I walked over to it and looked into the water's surface. My face looked back at me, dirty, tired, and a little scared. I stared at my reflection. The water showed a face I didn't recognize completely. My eyes looked haunted. My hair was messy. I saw the lines of worry on my face. I reached out and touched the water with my finger. The ripples spread out, distorting the face for a moment. Is this real? I asked myself softly. I felt a strange mix of hope and sadness. I wanted to believe I was safe. I wanted to forget the terrible things I thought I saw and heard. But part of me still doubted. As I stared at the water, I remembered something important. It was the truth I had almost forgotten. I was not a killer. I was not guilty of the crime I thought I had done. All those scary shadows and voices, they were just my mind playing tricks. They weren't real. I took a deep breath again. I told myself, it's okay, I am not guilty. I am here and I am alive. The fears inside me are not real. I am safe now. Slowly, I sat down next to the water. I looked at my face in the reflection. I started to feel a bit more calm. My mind still had doubts, but I could see the truth clearly now. I saw that the terrible nightmares were just inside my head. They weren't real. My real self was still there, alive and innocent. I thought about all the things I had been through. The storm outside, the darkness inside my mind, the hallucinations I thought I saw. I knew now that I had been fighting myself. My fear, guilt, and anger had made me see things that weren't true. But now I felt something new. A small light of hope. Maybe I could begin to heal. Maybe I could stop running from myself. I looked into the water again and said softly, I am not a monster. I am just a person who made mistakes in his mind. Now I want to find peace. The sun was starting to rise. Its light touched the tops of the trees. I knew a new day was beginning. I still felt tired and weak, but I also felt a tiny spark of courage. I realized that the biggest part of my pain was inside my own mind. And if I could see the truth, maybe I could start to get better. I stood up and looked around one last time. The forest was quiet again. The world was calm. I took a step forward, feeling a little lighter. I knew I had to keep moving. I had to trust myself and believe that I was not guilty. That was the first step to healing. As I walked away from the pond, I kept the image of my face in the water in my mind. I thought about the truth I saw there. I was innocent. I was not a criminal. The nightmares had been only in my mind. Now, I wanted to hold on to this truth as I continued my journey. The morning sun warmed my face. The fresh air filled my lungs. I felt tired, but also hopeful. I knew the road ahead might still be hard, but I was no longer running from myself. I had faced the worst and found the truth. That was enough for now. And so I moved forward slowly, into the new day. I was still hurt, still scared sometimes, but I was also beginning to believe in myself again. The storm had passed. The darkness inside was fading. A new beginning was waiting for me. The sun was just starting to rise. I stood by a small lake. The water was quiet and still. It looked like a mirror. I looked into it carefully. I saw my face staring back at me. My eyes were tired. My skin was dirty and scratched. I felt weak and sore, but something inside me was changing. I felt a tiny bit calmer than I had in a long time. For a moment, I just stared. I listened to the early birds. I took a deep breath. The storm inside my mind was quiet now. The nightmare was starting to fade. I thought about everything that had happened. The shadows, the voices, the running, the fear. It all felt like a bad dream. But I knew it was more than that. It was my mind playing tricks on me. It had made me believe things that weren't real. I had hoped myself in my mind and fought monsters that weren't there. Now I was outside. The dark, scary forest was behind me. The water in front of me showed the truth. I was not a criminal. I was just a man lost in his own fears. I wanted to believe that. I needed to believe that. I took a step closer to the water. I reached out and touched it gently. The cool liquid felt strange but good. I looked into the water again. This time, I saw my real face. No monsters, no police, just me. I remembered how it all started, how I woke up in a dark room during a storm, glass breaking around me. I was scared. I thought I was in danger. I ran, believing someone was trying to hurt me. I saw shadows and heard whispers. I thought I was guilty. I thought I had done something terrible. But now, I saw something different. I saw that all of those things were inside my mind. They were illusions. Nothing was real. I was not a murderer. I had just believed I was because my mind was so full of fear. I looked around. The forest was peaceful now. The trees stood still. The insects chirped softly. The water reflected a calm sky. It was like a new beginning. I understood that my fears had controlled me. But I could stop fighting. I could stop running. I took a deep breath again. I felt a small hope inside. Maybe I could heal. Maybe I could start over. I knew I still felt pain. I still had scars. But I was ready to accept what was true. I closed my eyes for a moment. I told myself, I am innocent. I am not guilty. It was my mind that made me see wrong things. I am safe now. When I opened my eyes, I saw the rising sun shining through the trees. Its light was warm and gentle. It made everything look better. I knew I had a long way to go, but I also knew I was no longer trapped. I was free to move forward, step by step. The nightmare was over. The storm inside me was calming down. As I turned away from the water, I felt a small smile form on my face. For the first time in a long while, I believed I could find peace. I could forgive myself. I could start fresh. I took one last look at the lake. Then I started walking toward the new day. The world was still and quiet, but inside me, a new hope was growing. I was ready to face whatever came next, not as a guilty man, but as someone who had learned the truth. And just maybe, I could finally begin to heal.